Well, hello again, and continuing with our series of proof for Jesus and looking at the immense amount of information that the church says exists to prove that Jesus existed, because his existence is the most documented thing in history. And someone had emailed me, asked me about this one. I did intend on going over it, and then I just kind of missed it. But Bar Serapion of Syria. This document is dated anywhere between 70 CE and 200 CE. No one even knows who Bar Serapion is. I did some research on it, and I came across a rather extensive article on the web that led me to believe that this perhaps just came out of a textbook, a Syrian textbook that was trying to explain the idea of rhetoric to its students in Greek. And so it's quite possible that this simply came out of a textbook, but what we read of it just doesn't seem factual at all anyways. But let's go through it, because this is a document that the church offers, although they don't know even where it came from to begin with. What are we to say when the wise are dragged by force by the hands of tyrants, and their wisdom is deprived of its freedom by slander, and they are plundered for their superior intelligence without the opportunity of making defense? They are not wholly to be pitied. But what benefit did the Athenians obtain by putting Socrates to death, seeing that they received as a retribution for it famine and pestilence? Or the people of Samos, by the burning of Pythagoras, see in that 1 hour their whole country was covered with sand? Or that the Jews, by the murder of their wise king, seeing that from the very time their kingdom was driven away from them? For with justice did God grant a recompense to the wisdom of all three of them. For the Athenians died by famine, and the people of Samos were covered by sand, covered by the sea, without remedy. And the Jews, brought to desolation and expelled from their kingdom, and are driven away into every land. Nay, Socrates did not die because of Plato, nor yet Pythagoras because of the statue of Hera, nor yet the wise king because of the new laws which he enacted. Well, the first thing we can say is that although it was claimed that this was a letter being written by Bar Serapion to his son, urging him to seek wisdom, if we look at this, none of these facts that they talk about are actual historical facts at all. And to try and prove that Jesus existed out of this, it does lead me to believe that perhaps this did just come, it was just a literary exercise in a textbook. What benefit did the Athenians obtain by putting Socrates to death? Their retribution was famine and pestilence? There's nothing recorded in any history book that says the Athenians suffered famine and pestilence, and many of them died from a famine after Socrates died? Nothing at all. Pythagoras, that in an hour their whole country was covered with sand, or as it says in the latter half of the letter, that the people were covered by the sea without remedy. That never happened. And Socrates living on because of Plato? Well, yes, carried on his teachings. Pythagoras lives on because of the statue of Hera, because there is a statue of Zeus's wife somewhere. This somehow proves that Pythagoras' teachings live on. There were probably many statues of Hera all over Greece. It has nothing to do with Pythagoras. And then again, the Jews that murdered their wise king, and from that very time their kingdom was driven away from them. Their kingdom was driven away in 70 CE. Jesus was supposed to have died in 33 CE, or thereabouts. None of this is factual. And this is supposed to prove that Jesus did exist. Now, I know that there were no kings. So the Christian church teaches us after the Jews were taken into captivity by King Nebuchadnezzar into Babylon. But I do know of a king. It's recorded in 2 Kings chapter 21-23 that they killed. His name was Ammon. 2 Kings 21-23 and 24. And the servants of Ammon conspired against him and slew the king in his house. And the people of the land slew all them that had conspired against Ammon. And the people of the land made Josiah his son king in his stead. So there's the last king that I can find that was recorded that was killed by the Jews. Jesus was not the king of the Jews. He was never officially proclaimed king. I did find another king, incidentally, that was put to death by Mark Antony in 37 BC. That was Antigonus. He was a Maccabean or Hasmonean king that took control of Judea after Herod the Great's father died, and Herod was just the king in Galilee at the time, and he forced Herod out of the area there in 40 BC. But 3 years later, Herod the Great came back in and captured him, sent him off to Antioch, and there, according to Cassius Dio, he was tied to a cross and flogged by Mark Antony, and then he was beheaded, that in 37 BC. But he wasn't killed by the Jews. He was heavily supported by the Jews, and Mark Antony purposely beheaded him. This was the first foreign king that the Romans had ever killed. So, but he wasn't killed by the Jews. So, but none of these things that we can read in this text are factual at all. So this is certainly no proof of Jesus. Thanks for listening.